Today, could we have maybe a little chill point on Saturday? If you're good? Although actually, now that I think about it, unlike usual chill point, there's nothing coming in like after us. So this could be extended chill point if we
can
wanted
do whatever we want.
It's I mean, it is 2:00 on a Saturday, which is my designated cookie eating time. So I will be eating cookies.
Oh.
Right, sure.
Oh man, I should.
I'd believe that, except I just know there's a pile of cookies in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
Are there other designated eating times?
Pretty much whenever I want.
Oh.
Is there a cookie nearby? Close enough.
Cookie eating time.
I see. So it's a very strictly defined time, but it can also vary somewhat if necessary.
Before we get started, we have to F around like we always do. And I forgot a thing I was going to say before we went live.
What?
That it sounds like what they're doing with Harley Quinn then is the same thing that they did with Poison Ivy, in that you're like, oh, when you're being the bad guy, you're doing something that works out to be bad. Like, I'm going to put you in a pit and I'm going to make you give all your money away to kids and I'm going to make you kill yourself or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, Poison Ivy's same MO is the same thing.
Poison Ivy has a
I'm going to
similar
save
thing
the
because of the
environment. I'm going to do
environment,
it by destroying a whole bunch of stuff and potentially hurting people, but trying not to hurt people. But I'm just going to try to blow up a bunch of shit.
I'm just saying in 2024, because that's when Cape Crusader was made. Not that it is currently 2024. Harley Quinn's not much of a villain.
Welcome to the second half of a conversation that we were having about the new Batman animated show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just felt like it was like, oh, this is we'll give the villains sympathetic stories for a big, like, I don't have as much of a problem with that as I thought I did. You know,
when
that
you
kind of
watch what she's doing, you don't really feel sympathetic
Yeah.
about it because it still feels very evil.
It's like, this is terrible.
But I'm just saying.
But at the same time,
I think she's like squad goals. Mm-hmm. Do we still say that, or is that one out? I was say Rizzed or something now.
Goated.
With the sauce. I
Oh
believe.
right.
Yeah.
Nobody has been able to explain to me what the difference between goated and goated with the sauce is, and when things transcend from one to the next.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
right.
well,
But anyway,
sauce is supposedly something that always improves stuff, unless you're Cameron and it's mayonnaise.
Right.
So it varies.
Yeah. Maybe it's like with style.
I don't know.
Speaking of things that happened before this stream, yesterday we had the PPR, and we had some wonderful guests, Shivam and Magic New Girl, and Shivam was looking very dapper with his. He had a new haircut and everything, and he asked for feedback from the chat. He's like, "What do you think of my hair?" And somebody said he was Sigma Riz, which I did have to clarify is a positive.
Yeah, for a man with gray hair, when you say that, you're taking an awful risk on them not knowing what you're saying.
It's the hard thing with written communication. It's hard to understand the tone.
Yeah.
Did he say, "What do you think of my hair?" Right answers only.
No.
Okay, because that would be definitely a very Gen Alpha thing to do, right?
Not everything has to be about memes.
No.
Anyway.
Just some things.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Paul.
Welcome to ChillPoint, the show where we chill and talk about whatever we want to talk about, which occasionally veers into video game stuff. So far, we haven't really dealt with video games at all.
I don't know if we have to. I mean, there's nothing that interesting in gaming.
I mean, it's true sometimes. It's fair.
Like, I can't. It's basically the end of January. It's February now. And I don't think anything happened over the past month.
Yeah, it's kind of a bit of a hibernation.
Yeah.
People are recovering from their...
Switch 2 announcement doesn't count.
Yeah. switch to nobody cares.
Well, not until April.
Anyway, let's. We also talk. Of course, we're also talking about the episode of ChillPoint that went up on Thursday. Which, if you haven't checked out, you should look at that on our YouTube channel.
Why are you texting me?
Oh, because you told me there was leftover pizza in the moon base, and I thought it.
Yeah, I told you that like a.
Yeah, but then my watch gave me a whole bunch of fitting replies, so I thought I'd just send you them all.
Why did you ask? You know where it is.
Yeah.
And how it is. You ate some.
Yeah, but the watch just gave me some really good replies, so I thought I should just send those.
No, those are all terrible replies.
Should bring up the document, Paul, and start talking about checkpoints.
Yeah, let's.
Oh, right. Let's see if it's going to log you out because it's Saturday.
No, so far we're still logged in.
Hey.
Oh.
That
Maybe
might
we-
not. That might change.
All right.
Well, I mean, place your bets now, I guess, chat. On whether or not Paul gets logged out.
So, starting with, it's the 20th anniversary of The Sims.
25th?
25th.
Thank God. Okay. Because I said that in the opening.
Yes. 25th anniversary next week of The Sims, which this only sort of came up. This only came up in the corner graphic because I used the box art for Sims and Sims 2, and you can see on the box art for Sims 2, there's a little badge that says best-selling game, and that's true.
Okay.
Up until like Minecraft, I think, or maybe there's probably other one, maybe Call of Duty or something. But
Right.
for a very long time, The Sims 2 was the best-selling PC game ever made, which is pretty amazing considering it's like not an action game. It's like
Yeah. It's a simulation.
It's a simulation
of
type
sorts.
game.
Yeah, it's the best game that lets me take out the trash without me actually taking out the trash.
And you know, there was there used to be like one of those bits of like trivia and things.
I walked into that earlier and I tried to fix it. I guess I didn't get it all the way.
The Sims 3, in fact, went past it, and various other games have now bypassed it. But I think, as with Myst,
Right.
I think the original Sims was actually one of those games that people got
Because they
CD-ROM
thought-
drives for.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay. I see what you're saying. That
It was
it drove sales of CD-ROMs.
Drove sales of CD-ROM drives. Maybe maybe the eras are not quite lined up for that to actually be the case. But anyway,
I really
I'm-
want to say that it'd be if I can make this work, a great pun would be missed opportunity. But I don't really know how that works in this context.
Well,
so I'm
we'll
just
save
going to
that-
say it out loud.
Save it for another missed lower third or something in the future. Yeah,
that's pretty good.
all right. Hear that? We need more missed games.
Yeah.
We have a joke lined up and ready to
We
go.
have one at least. Yeah, just what we
We have
need.
one joke.
Yeah. This was written by Nelson, by the way. We should
Yes.
point that out.
Oh, yeah, we should.
Yeah. Nelson, I to be honest, I don't know whether he what his personal history with The Sims is.
I have to assume it's pretty steep.
Yeah, whether some of this, because Nelson wrote all this great Simlish stuff, which Kathleen got quite a few compliments on her Simlish pronunciation
Yes.
in the comments, which was great. But I don't know if this was mostly Nelson looking stuff up, or whether some of this was knowledge he already had.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, I had to look some of them up because I didn't recall there being the only Sims I remember there being phrases that kind of seemed to work with anything were like the spin-off games because those get repeated a lot.
I always just assumed that the whole point of Simlish was to make a series of phonemes linked together that wouldn't mean anything. It would sound like it's supposed to be a language, but that doesn't actually mean anything. And you're just mostly going on vibes and tone of the voice.
Exactly.
And it's like, well, yes, but apparently all of these phrases actually do coincide with something.
Well,
so
it's-
like,
it's-
all right,
it's a-
you'll hear
it is-
this at this time. you know?
Like it is a real. I mean, I think it is an actual language. Like it is actual. Like
a conlang of sorts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
anyway. But yeah, so they're going to be re-releasing or releasing now. And I saw some questions about this in the comments, and I'm not entirely sure if we're talking like release but updated so it runs on modern computers,
Right.
or we're talking actually like remastered release.
Because this is the thing that bothers me about this. This is like doing a remaster of Lego. Like, that's how it feels to me. Is that I'm like, we're going to remaster The Sims and The Sims 2 for PC. Okay. But you have The Sims 4. Like, you have the whole point of The Sims, every time a new version has come out, is to make a tighter, better working engine with higher graphical capability. But the gameplay loop and the gameplay options are always the same, are they not? Like The Sims 2 was better than The Sims 1 because it did all the stuff The Sims 1 did, but it did more and better versions of it.
I mean, there's always differences between versions, right? You know,
There's
there's
like starter houses you can pick
Like
up.
SimCity and SimCity 2000 are markedly different games, but that's because of how they look and they act in terms of how you can lay things out, right? In SimCity, a residential zone is always a 3x3 grid.
Yeah.
But you can use individual squares and make your residential zones however amount of squares that you want. And then 2000 and 3000, though, feel like they were roughly just an evolution of one into the other. So that's why I was like, with The Sims, I thought it's the same kind of thing. It's like one begats two, and it just means like, and there's more jobs you can pick, and the houses have a finer detail that you can lay them out with, and like those kind of things. But is that not the case?
I mean, I think that is the case, but it's not like it's an entirely different game with an entirely different engine, entirely different stuff. So, people have preferences for different
the graphics
things.
looks different.
Right, but
Everyone jumped into WoW Classic back in the day.
Sure.
When that came out, even though the new WoW is better in basically every way that can be measured.
okay.
In terms
Sims-
of in terms of
Quality
ease
of life.
quality of
Sims
life,
4
graphics, all these
Doesn't
different things.
have what Sims 3 has, which is my nostalgia.
Exactly. Sometimes that's what you want.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
It's playing whatever
Sims is
the
one
old
of,
version of Mario as opposed to the new version of Mario.
but if I went to go play like the original Super Mario Brothers, it's not like I guess that's not true either.
You
Because
you can take Super Mario Brothers 1 and go into a different version and find that it runs slightly differently.
True, yeah. But then what am I discovering from having done that? That if they've changed if the physics have been changed slightly, or the screen is 4x3 or it's like 8x4 or whatever, or maybe actually more appropriately 8x7 maybe is what I was thinking. I don't know. Or more appropriately, Super Mario All-Stars. I'm not
Right.
considering that. That's like Super Mario All-Stars was a massive graphical update for
But that's
those original games, and they end up feeling like brand new games as a result.
right. But I mean but that's closer to like a remaster. That's not actually just like a sequel.
Yeah,
thing,
but that's what I mean. Is I'm like the point of a remaster, if it is to make things more pretty, and you're like, right, and then you'll go play the original Super Mario Brothers. But The Sims just still feels to me like The Sims is just like always been The Sims, no matter what you do and no matter how you expand it. It's like fucking NHL 95 or NHL 2025 are going to be ultimately the same game.
And yet
I
people are
think
still going to prefer
I think
certain other
that
ones.
just shows that you haven't played those games.
Yeah,
very
I
much.
haven't, right?
You
Like
play
there's a
any
significant
Sims?
number of people who play Sims 3 now, even though Sims 4 has been out for 10 years.
Right.
Have you played any Sims?
No. I had
Do
a
you-
girlfriend who played it once, and I watched her play it briefly, and I was like, this is not my jam.
Okay.
It's
can't-
fun.
I can't force you to see the nostalgia of a thing that you're not interested in.
It's true. Yeah. But I guess, like, if I'm from the outside looking in, though, am I not being objective more about, like, are these ultimately not the same thing? Because there's no levels, there's no new maps, there's no new, like, things like that, right? Like,
I mean,
That's not necessarily true.
They
There's
are different. Like
neighborhoods and stuff.
they are different.
I mean, I will say the big thing with The Sims, as somebody who hasn't played it since like Sims is realizing that, like, as we do stories about The Sims on ChillPoint and stuff, and I read stories about it, that The Sims now is basically an entirely different game. Like, there's all sorts of RPG elements to it.
Okay.
There's like RPG elements to it. You can,
There's going to be certain
I didn't know that.
item
the
sets
kinds
you
of-
can't get.
the kinds of stuff that you do is entirely different.
And so if you
Sims.
wish for the simpler experience, the more
Yeah.
original experience, because you don't want to have all the extra bells and whistles of it, okay, then I can understand why people would want to go back to 1 and 2 to play like remasters of those. Because if they are a more simpler version, that's just, it's like Dragon Quest versus Dragon Quest 11 for me, where I'm like, Dragon Quest was a very simple, straightforward game. One hero, you're doing one thing, you have these things
Sure.
you can do. And I'm like, that really got me. What I really enjoy JRPGs from a later, in the series where they're way more complicated. And the busier the systems get, the more I get turned off by how busy the systems get.
But again, the majority of it's going to be for people who have nostalgia for the older thing.
Yeah.
Apparently, now this I didn't know. Apparently, you can't remove the ladder from pools and trap people in the pool anymore.
Yeah.
So, I mean, right away. Anyway. Yeah, we'll see what this is. Now, we've talked about this sometimes before, but at the end of the story, Nelson talks about, unfortunately, console players aren't going to be getting this. At least there's
No announcement.
no information that it's going to make its way onto Switch, or that Xbox and PlayStation, the new, like, I think original Sims might have had some releases on old Xbox and PlayStation devices, but it's not, original Sims obviously isn't currently available on Xbox and PlayStation.
Yeah. I mean, generally, if you found Sims games on consoles, they were spin-off games. They were little adventure things that were sim-like. Because I played a couple of them on the DS.
But the sort of part of the reason why this is part of the story is, of course, the main place that I saw this was Nintendo Life. Which is primarily a Nintendo reporting stuff. And so it's always funny to see, because they've got a lot of stories that they have to post every week, every day. And so they'll post just sort of something like this, which is sort of a general interest video game story, but then they have to tie it into Nintendo stuff.
The theme of the blog,
yeah. And so it'll be like, here's this thing. What does this mean for Switch? We don't know.
I write for a Nintendo-focused blog, and then therefore I have to make it work that way, even though I like a lot of games from a lot of different platforms.
And also it's early in the year and there's no news.
There's that too.
Yeah.
I mean,
will it be coming out for Switch 2?
I mean, potentially, supposedly, those Joy-Cons can be a mouse, so that would work really well.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, they have definitely confirmed that is a real ass thing.
Yes, thankfully.
Beach is very cynical.
It will use.
I'm incredibly cynical.
It will really use the enhanced capabilities of the Switch 2, so that it can finally play The Sims 1.
You know, that's that secret C button they keep calling a C button that's on the thing, that brand new button. It makes the thing go 3D. So anyway, I'm curious about...
Beach doesn't deserve a Switch 2.
No, I don't. Heather will buy one. I'll get to play it anyway.
Under lock and key.
There were Sims games for Nintendo platforms, but they were spin-offs.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Like the Herbs, I think was the...
No, they were literally called The Sims.
There were some of the
Sims.
Sims?
Some of them, the one I played was called...
Sims Life or something?
No, it was like The Sims 2 Pets. If you didn't know any better, you really would. So I played one that was just called The Sims something, like I can't remember the actual title of it. It was on the DS. You drive into town, your car gets wrecked, you have to go rent a room, and then you end up taking over the hotel, and there's just weird stuff that happens in the town. And sometimes you go out into the desert, and there's just a random toilet that you can pick up and give to someone else, because whatever. And then you can find the subplot of becoming Ratman.
Is that not the Herbs Sims in the City? Did it have an orange cover?
No?
Okay. Different Sims game, I guess. That's Stardew Valley. My Sims, I guess. Maybe. Who knows?
Don't know. As far as I remember, it was literally just called The Sims.
The DS, though, right?
It was on the DS.
Yeah. So, I mean, but that's the thing. The DS has a touchscreen with a stylus for fine control.
Yeah.
Which means you probably use the stylus a lot to play that game.
You don't build stuff in that game.
Right. So, in other Sims games that came to consoles, did people just use their joysticks and like move a cursor around a screen?
I have no
I
idea.
think there were Sims games on consoles.
Okay.
At this time of my life, I would have had a DS, and that would have been it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's talk about DeepSeek. DeepSeek, it's a new AI system that
DeepSeek found left wanting.
that was released just this last week by a Chinese company. It has a ton of buzz around it with this idea that it was created and trained on in a much more cost-effective way than some of the big sort of OpenAI or Google's one, whatever it's called, Gemini,
I think, yeah.
or Microsoft's one, whatever. I don't know. They're all given weird names. But anyway, the idea that it was created a lot cheaper than the other ones. How much cheaper? There's a little bit of debate about, there's this number that was made for $5 million. That is probably not correct in the sense that was like the cost of like the last or the sort of final round of training.
Yeah.
It probably was a lot more. It probably was more than that, and took more time than it seems like it took. But there's no denying that it was done much cheaper, much faster, and using sort of not commodity hardware, but using basically there's the other interesting part about the story that Cameron wrote this story, by the way. But the other interesting part of the story that Cameron didn't get into is that, so it was made, he talked about that it's, they trained it using these NVIDIA, what are they called?
H800 GPUs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which are not sort of top of the line NVIDIA GPUs.
Right.
And NVIDIA has been getting a lot of traction in the past couple of years because they're real big focus on AI stuff. And sort of these giant sort of AI training data centers and stuff. And due to export regulations, those super high-end AI chips are not allowed to be sent to China. So like part of the reason why this thing was made using these sort of more lower end, more commodity chips is because theoretically they're not allowed to have the cool NVIDIA chips.
Right.
Now, there is some speculation that part of the reason why they are sort of underreporting the amount of money it took to do this is that they may be using more processor power using these chips that they're not supposed to have than they actually. So basically, that they might have acquired a whole bunch of these chips somehow. And they're saying that they don't have them, so therefore, if they needed less processor power, who knows?
Yeah. I mean, what would you do about it anyway?
And there's a lot of I think there's a lot of sort of FUD stuff around because a lot of Silicon Valley people don't want to admit that maybe they got sort of outplayed or not outplayed, but like that they came up
technologied.
Yeah, that they actually came up with a cool new way of doing this. Anyway, whatever the case, the other thing that I did want to point out that Cameron talks about in this or mentions in the story, because that's how this has been reported, but it's been referred to as a open source AI model, which is not very accurate. It is a AI model that has been released publicly for people to use. The actual source for it is not available.
Right.
And so it's not really open source in a way that actually matters.
Yeah.
It is being released so people can install it on their own systems and stuff, which is cool, but different from it being open source. But yeah, the big deal about this is that they theoretically made this, not only was it a lot cheaper to create this model. You know, OpenAI just did a round of funding that raised $6 billion or something, because that's what they're going to need in order to keep training their models to be better.
Yeah.
And apparently this was done for, 1/30th the cost or
Yeah.
something stupid.
Coal's expensive.
But on the other hand, the other point is that just to actually run this model is also a lot cheaper, which means that DeepSeek has you can go to DeepSeek has a freely available thing that you can actually go in.
Yeah, and I mean,
and do stuff with.
I would say also too that that's like we know what we know from what we've been told.
Yeah.
We don't actually all we know is what we've been told, and it's and the effect of what we've been told has also it caused a shrinkage, because it didn't pop any bubbles, but it did cause a shrinkage against NVIDIA and some of the other AI things briefly. Anybody who's AI involved, it caused this like the market contracted. And somebody put up graphs later that were like, hey, so if anybody ever posts like a graph of stock prices to show you how the world is changing or the economy is changing or whatever, always have a look at how it is they're illustrating that, because
look at the axis.
Yeah, you have to see it's like what's the length of the axis, and then also like what was it only one day, was it 1 month, was it 1 year, was it 5 years? Like have a look at what that looks like. And to my understanding, it's like there was a contraction, and then everyone was like, "Oh, sweet, Nvidia stock's on sale," and they all went and they bought Nvidia stock, and it slams the price back up again because of demand. So it's like the whatever is going on here, everything sucks still. So don't worry about that. Everything has continued to still suck. And they're just gonna burn 10 trees to tell you a lie, and that's fine. All we can do is just keep saying we don't want this, and then hopefully someone's gonna listen. But who knows how long that'll take.
And of course, there's the great Schadenfreude of Sam Altman from OpenAI being like, well, it's easy to do it when other people have shown you how to do it already.
Yeah.
And, talking about how
they came along and stole our intellectual property.
Yeah.
It's like, what's that feel like, my dude? Please, I'm completely unfamiliar with that feeling.
And
I'd like to think that there's part of me too that's like, I want to be optimistic and be like, I hope that people handing them their ass in this way to be like, look at how stupid and foolish your comments have been. Don't you feel dumb and stupid about this? And I'm like, there's the pessimistic part is that there's so much that money insulates you against, and one of those things is having to feel stupid for anything you've ever done in your life, I guess. So
for some reason the other I had a dream about some weird sort of TV show thing the other night, and it really made me think about that's basically what AI do, right? Is that because it was that thing where and then I was sort of having this dream about this whole adventure that it was sort of explicitly a TV show in the dream, but then it's that thing you wake up and you're like, oh, that didn't make any sense. like in the context of this sort of dream logic, it's sort of like, yeah, sure, this happens and this stuff. And it's like AI is good at that thing of it's like it, and it's the same thing of a dream. Like it just sort of is glomming together all these different pieces from your own, in your dream, it's putting together all these experiences or things that you've seen without a lot of necessarily a lot of intention as to having it sort of make sense as a whole.
Right, yeah.
It's just sort of a bunch of things that then kind of looks like whatever thing you're thinking about. And that kind of made me think about, how AI works on stuff where it's just like, yeah, it can make a thing that looks like the thing.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of continuity and context and other things. It's like, it seems correct, doesn't it? It's like, I don't know.
Well, don't worry.
Yeah.
Between AI getting rid of all of the actual information and making it not information you can trust, and we get rid of all the books, no one's going to have reading comprehension skills for it to matter.
Yeah. We all used to think that the Google Deep Dream project was such a fun thing for drawing the weirdest looking dogs in the just over and over and over again.
It was.
And it was like, this is so fun and interesting. You guys are doing this. And at no point did it occur to anybody that was like, this is a terrible precedent of things to come.
I think it occurred to people.
There's a bunch of sci-fi writers I would say would probably got there first.
Although, I mean, I did when Cameron was talking about writing this story, I did do like, could Deep Think write a story about how cool it is in comparison to OpenAI?
Oh, yeah, probably.
Like, I kind of want Deep Think to write a story dunking on OpenAI itself, see what it would actually do. Anyway. Let's move on to Phil Spencer talking about and so Phil Spencer was talking about how the longstanding requirement that games that come out on Xbox have to be compatible with both and have to have feature parity between Xbox Series S and Xbox Series X. So the low end and the high end.
Yeah.
And reiterating that is their plan, despite, there's the thing of like Larian being able to sort of sidestep that. Although apparently, so Larian originally, we reported on this months ago. Originally, Baldur's Gate 3 was delayed for Xbox because Larian couldn't figure out how to do the split screen co-op on Series S. Because, when you do split screen co-op, you're basically rendering the entire game twice, which is it's tough. It's hard to do the thing. And so when the Series S is less powerful. And so they got special dispensation that they released it. They did finally release it. The Series X version could do it. Series S couldn't. They are currently testing the next expansion for Baldur's Gate 3, which will be adding split screen co-op to the Series S. So apparently they figured it out.
Or at least they're trying to. That's, we got a number of comments on this story that was just like, so what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
Which, fair, but I don't think we were saying there was anything necessarily wrong with it.
It's not saying anything wrong with it, but it is wild to have the head, like, Phil Spencer is the head of Xbox.
Yes.
It's wild to have the head of a console manufacturer talking about how the fact that one of their consoles is less powerful encourages people to, make games that fit within that power envelope.
Yeah.
Like, not even Nintendo, who, everybody
traditionally
knows,
has made consoles that are not as powerful.
And like
as
everybody
the
knows
leader.
the Switch is a less powerful console.
Yeah.
Nintendo never says, well, what's great about our console is that if you make stuff for our console and it works well, it'll work even better on the more powerful consoles.
Yeah.
Nintendo doesn't even say that.
Yeah.
So the idea that like rather than talking about all the awesome stuff and the amazing graphics your console can do, the idea that he would actually sort of be trying to push this as a positive,
I mean,
is very funny to me.
There's that. He has to. As far as I see, he has to come out and say that we're still maintaining that because that was the promise when they released it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because by having two consoles like that, that's the fear that you might have as a consumer, is that if I don't buy the more expensive one, then eventually stuff won't run on the cheaper one. And then because they had what they had happen with Baldur's Gate 3, there were people who were like, wait, does that mean this is where the split starts to happen, even though they've promised this thing? So he did, well, not specifically him, but they did have to come out and say, no, that's still a thing that we want to adhere to.
Right. And then because at that point you're like, well, you're giving these people special dispensation. You're saying, okay, we'll let them do this. But if that's the case, you let Larian put out essentially version 1 to version 1.5, like this kind of idea. Did they have to reach an agreement with Larian to say, we'll let you do this,
but you have to keep working on it.
But you can't say that you're going to stop, because if you do, then we're going to have to take it off the store. Because if you just basically say we're not going to, because it's like then you're playing chicken, and then at that point they might be like, also we're not going to let you put your shit back on Xbox again, and we're Microsoft, so if we want to, we could make things really difficult for you for Windows development if we wanted to.
To me, it felt more like Microsoft made a special dispensation because Baldur's Gate 3 sold a heck of a lot more than they expected it to.
And
they wanted it on their system as well.
Yeah, and I'm like, of course you would do that, because you're like, this is kind of the perfect game for us, and it's made by a Western studio, and we should be supporting people in Western studios.
But I guess the idea that we don't know behind the scenes, but the idea that this special dispensation that they got was under the requirement that they would continue to work on.
Yeah, we don't know.
Yeah. That they didn't just sort of go, well, we can't do it.
Refer a thing that I just saw Count Made for Ants say in chat is, I do kind of wish Sony had its own Series S equivalent to the PS5, at least initially, just so fighting game tournaments could have replaced their PS4s with them and at least have SSD storage. And it's like, okay. And yeah, maybe that's valuable
They have that.
to a small thing, but they do. It's the PS4 is their PS5.
No, it's PS5 and PS5 Pro now.
Oh, I guess that's
Essentially,
true.
that's here's our not quite as powerful system.
And then here's our actual more powerful system.
And there's the same, I mean, I don't think Sony has actually said it. I don't know if they said it explicitly, but I'm sure that there's the same requirement that you can't make a game that works differently on the Pro rather than the thing, other than graphics.
Because ultimately what you did with what Xbox did is they say, here's our Xbox and here's our Xbox Pro. Like right off the bat, they said,
they just did it at the same time.
Yeah. And they said, you get them both, but rather than and that's the thing, is that nobody looked at the Series Y, the Series Y is the lower third here, so I keep seeing that in my head. The Series S should have been pitched as the new Xbox, and then they should have pitched, like Apple does with their phones, where it's like, here's the new iPhone, and then it's like, and then here's the iPhone Pro, like when they do that difference. They don't show you the iPhone Pro first generally and then say, but here's the cut-down model that the most of you are going to buy. They show you the one thing and all the cool shit about it, and they say, here's the Pro version, here's the extra more cool things that are in this other version, to give you that sense of, this is the base model, and it's so great. And then here's what we did to make the secondary base model. And they didn't. They said that the Xbox Series X was the one that everybody's going to want, and the S is the one you give to your little brother. I don't really know what the...
I mean, that the idea that the Xbox Series S and Series X was a terrible naming system, I don't think is an exciting new
terrible idea
revelation. But when you're looking to Apple for coherent naming systems, you know that something has gone wrong.
And if they called it the Xbox Pro, then it would but I feel like also I feel like what we're used to in the industry a lot more is when it comes to consoles, what we've always kind of been used to is, here's the new thing. It's the new thing for 5 to 7 years.
Right.
And that's what the thing is from this company.
5 years.
For 5 years. And then that's what we compete on, is that this is the new thing that comes from this company, and that's what we make for that thing. Even when like the 3DS was out, and you have like the 3DS and you have the 3DS XR, the DSi and the DSi LL, and like all that kind of stuff, right? It's like we have the larger version of it. Is the larger version more powerful? No, it's just a larger version of it. It has bigger screens, nicer screens. I don't know, but it has bigger screens. Maybe that's nicer for me. That is kind of what it was always predicated on. And that instance of we're going to, especially like the PS4, when the PS4 launched, you have the PS4 and then the PS4 Pro, it's like, oh, this isn't like the PS3 and the PS3 Slim or the PS2 and the PS2 Slim, where we made a cut down version that maybe uses less power, but is still the same like performance. This is a whole new idea of we've made a more powerful version of the thing that already exists. That's when the PS4 did that with the PS4 Pro, it was all of a sudden saying mid-cycle console refreshes can be more than what they were. And in a way that's harder to track then as a game developer, I think, because you don't know that you're always going to have the same target for that. But at least it means that it follows the same line. Things get more powerful over time. And with the Xbox saying, here's both things at the same time, and you have to make a choice, naturally people are going to be like, well, if I'm buying it now, why don't I just buy the more powerful version? But then people are also, if you're like, no, don't worry, it'll work on both systems, they're like, well, then I guess I could get the underpowered system for now because it's the money I have. And then you find out that you can't play a game on it. That would be awful.
Yes?
Yes.
The other thing that he talked about was handhelds. So Steam, the rise of sort of the Steam Deck and the RG Ally and other sort of Steam Deck-like things. I don't think there's been a solid confirmation of it, but there's been many rumors that Xbox is working on their own mobile device.
I believe Phil Spencer said he thought mobile devices were a thing or something. He had a line somewhere where he said they should make a handheld or something, but he wasn't like confirming anything. They weren't talking that they were doing it. And I'm sure they've got something like that they got going on in like whatever their R&D department is, probably trying certain things because that form factor has been popular.
So
but their marketing certainly goes against that whole idea.
But obviously the idea that, the trying to keep their developers in this mentality of targeting a lower end or a lower spec system is in their best interest if they want to also have some sort of mobile thing coming out.
I mean, it's a good line.
I really do. I think that Phil Spencer has in his head the dream of, I want to make a portable console to go with our home console. I think that it's always for him has been like, I want to make this too. I want to either have the same console but one you can go on the road with, or I want to have the two of them because I like to play things portably as well. That's where I think this is coming from a lot. And it's like, I run a gaming company. I could make one of these things if I thought that there was a market for it.
I guess. I don't know. I don't follow along with enough Xbox stuff to make that claim.
I'm making a terrible supposition here, but it's always, but it's been a thing that seems to come up in the past too, where at least I've heard it like 3 times so far over the many years that I've been doing ChillPoint, that I'm like, why is Phil Spencer why do we always hear him kind of mention portables out of the side of his mouth every so often? And I'm like, you want to do this. I bet you he would even like to take Xbox to like be a hybrid console. Make it feel really good portably and then have it run in a dock at home like the Switch did. I think that he probably saw the Switch and was like, son of a bitch.
That would be a wild...
Maybe? I don't know. I feel like that's a bunch of jumping to conclusions that you've got nothing to back up for.
Yeah.
I do want to mention,
I have no proof of any of that.
Yes, but what proof I do have is I know Graham wrote this story.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
I think, though, that it's... I think that it is interesting that with the push of, hey, this can run great. If you do it so it targets the S, it can run great on the Steam Deck, and it can run great in a ROG Ally, and it can run great on the Nintendo Switch. And like those kind of, the lines we're drawing there to be for him to say that is like that's a responsible thing for somebody in the industry not connected to a platform to say. I think.
Microsoft's been really going into this like multi-platform thing. I think in partially to sort of differentiate themselves from Sony.
Yeah.
That they've been like, yeah, bring it to PC, bring it to Xbox, bring it to whatever consoles you want.
Yeah.
More the merrier.
It's all a net good to us. And like even on Valve, where SteamOS is based off of Linux, and you guys see, it's like, yes, because it sells the game. And if the game is playable anywhere, if it plays on Game Pass and it can play anywhere, why wouldn't we want to be a part of that future?
Again, their marketing doesn't really support we want to make our own handheld, because the marketing is literally commercials that point out that your computer is basically an Xbox.
Yeah, but I wouldn't...
Or laptop or
sure.
your whatever. So that already kind of exists.
Yeah, but you wouldn't... Xbox marketing should not focus on, look at how great this thing runs on a ROG Ally. Look at how great this game is for a Steam Deck, because that has nothing to do with Xbox, the brand.
This isn't marketing, though.
That's right. What I'm saying is that Phil Spencer's position as a person in the industry, not as the head of Xbox, is I want to make gaming better for all platforms, and because I'm the head of a company that is the head of a platform, I can help drive that by saying this is important because of these things. It is just, I agree with you. It's super weird to hear the head of a platform to say it's good for everybody. It's good for these guys, our competitors. It's good for them too. That is super weird. It's like, I wouldn't expect anybody else to ever have a comment or have to say things like that, but he wants to say that.
Him wanting to make a thing doesn't mean Microsoft will make a thing. We are not arguing the same things. You've said your piece. I've said my piece. Can we go?
I do like Maricat's got the quote there that it's that perfect acknowledgement that when asked about the mobile stuff, saying that we're really interested in doing something in the portable gaming sphere, and he has asked his team to develop not just a handheld but a full-fledged vision. So, it's gonna happen. They're gonna make something because they have a vision.
Yeah.
So who knows?
I mean, shit. That could even just be that could be like a VR helmet type experience, or like a Sony Glastron type experience, where something you can wear on your head to see, and they could be like, that's what we want to do, is something even weirder than just a screen in a pocket.
All right. Speaking of weird things, Donkey Kong Country is coming back again. Donkey Kong Country
Never
returns.
gonna make a new Donkey Kong Country game.
Donkey,
or Donkey Kong game. It's just going to be remixed forever for you.
Yeah.
If you're a
Donkey
fan.
Kong Country Returns HD. I feel like we were calling things, whatever the name of the game was, HD, like for the Wii.
Yeah.
Yep.
I feel like we need a new. It's got to like whatever. We need the 4K or.
I want to remind everyone that at one point 720p was HD.
Yeah.
It's not anymore, but it was at one point.
Well, technically it is, which has people have gotten a lot of mileage out of the fact that 720 is still technically considered HD.
What I have seen actually is more games that have come out for like the Wii getting HD remakes from Nintendo anyway, getting HD remakes when they hit 1080p. So like Skyward Sword HD, Twilight Princess HD. This is as well getting an HD remake. Okami HD is the Okami that's on that Capcom brought to the Switch platform. Yeah.
They should use the resolution naming systems that they have for like computer monitors. Like this one displays
QWXGA.
Yeah, QWXGA or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, Donkey Kong Country Returns. This is interesting because it's got co-op play in Donkey Kong, and because this game has come out a couple times already, so it came out originally on the Wii U, I think, and then it came out on the 3DS, and then now it's coming out here. And on the Wii U,
It was the Wii, actually.
it was originally Wii?
Yeah, originally the
Wii.
Wii because Tropical Freeze is what came out on the Wii U.
Yeah.
So on the Wii, it sucked from a performance standpoint. They had a lot of problems of it. Like it was low frame rate, and it was apparently had a lot of issues.
And I heard there was waggle for some reason.
Yeah, and
maybe?
it also had motion controls when it shouldn't have had motion controls.
Yeah.
And then they brought it out on 3DS, and apparently it was better in basically every way,
Yeah.
except for how they did how they did the
Co-op mode.
Co-op mode, and the reason why is it's a very simple thing that when you, and this is how Mario works too. When you jump on the top of an enemy, you can bounce off the enemy, but the enemy dies.
Yep.
So the other guy can't jump on the enemy now. Mm-hmm. And in the original version, there was a window of like, I think it was like
22 frames.
22 frames. So like, a little less than a second, where you could go. So if people were following each other, they could go bounce, bounce, and leave. In the new one, in the 3DS one, there wasn't that. And apparently they used the 3DS system for this new one. And if anybody has played any of the, like I haven't played this particular Donkey Kong Country game, but I played other Donkey Kong Country games. Donkey Kong Country is like jumping on enemies to progress through the level is like a particularly mechanic that they particularly use. Mm-hmm. It is a very common mechanic in that thing. And apparently there are some levels that are, if not impossible, it requires an entirely different way of playing the level, where you're basically having to like designate who gets which enemy to jump on, so that you don't mess yourself up.
Usually, games I've played, especially like Nintendo style games, where it's like got a 2-player mode that feels like it's been added because it's like, oh well, this works most of the time, always has a few levels where 2 players are detrimental.
Oh man, the Mario games where you can like interact with each other in multiplayer are just the worst.
Like, I'm thinking
you can
of,
like bump each other off.
I think it was.
Oh yeah.
I think it was Yoshi's Woolly World. Beach and I tried to play 2-player, and there was a level where you need to walk around to have the dog follow you in a certain way to get through stuff.
Right, because the dog chases
But because
you.
there's 2 of you, whoever becomes like in closest proximity, it starts to follow. So it like having 2 people just makes it
Yeah, because
impossibly difficult.
if you jump too far away from the dog and all of a sudden the dog is like, I'm 1 pixel closer to the person who's been waiting for all this other shit to happen. The dog's like, I'm following you now. And it's like, you can't because I need to stay out of the way. And if you, it's a constant thing of like, I can't even stay that far away from that point. So.
Yeah, there were certain levels where we just dumped down to 1 player to get through them.
Yeah. And I
feel like this
And
is
it looks
the
like
same.
and it looks like this game, the way you get through some of those levels is you just one guy just goes and the other one just dies over and over again, and you just let it go.
it's not ideal. And I'm like, which is stupid because I'm like, the way you fix this.
Well, and they already fixed it. That was the thing. It's like it worked in the original, and they messed it up.
But I'm like, even then though, I feel like that's still kind of a broken idea because it's like, oh, we'll give you a 22 frame window, and I'm like, no, what you do is you make the enemy die to 2 or 3 hits. Like specifically when you're in co-op mode, the enemy dies to 2 hits or 3 hits. Like that's how you change it. And yeah, that's changing the object somewhat. It's making it understand that if you're in co-op mode, then things are different. And I'm like, right. And though as I keep thinking about it, I'm like, really there's no points. Like the whole reason you kill an enemy in platformers traditionally was that you got points for killing a Goomba, right? Like that kind of idea. Or you jump on a Koopa Troopa and you want it to go ding 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 ding, 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 ding. You want your 1-up at the end, kind of idea. They do that in Mario Wonder. That if you kill a whole bunch of enemies in a row, it goes good, great, fantastic, superb, like all that kind of stuff, and then it goes all the way to wonderful, and it goes 1-up at the end, and you get but there's no points associated with it. It's like there's no points in that. There's no points because there's no point to points.
Right.
So in Donkey Kong Country, if there's no points, there's no score because you're platforming and you're just trying to get the secrets and stuff. Why have those enemies die at all? why not just let them be there? If you hit them from underneath, they hurt you, but if you jump on their top of them, they go, ow, and then you bounce off of them and you keep moving.
So my guess.
Well, the idea that they disappear after one hit is important.
It's supposed to make it complicated so that if you hit it and you do the jump wrong or whatever, then you've missed your opportunity. I'm like, but why even do that? Why not let people explore and find the secrets and be
that's
like,
a different game.
it is a different game, but I think it's actually a much more fun game, and it's a lot more accommodating to co-op.
Sure. So what I would guess has probably occurred here is on the Wii, if the Wii had 2-player, it's because it's a home console. I'm going to guess the 3DS version didn't have co-op.
Probably not.
So
that would be difficult.
If they took the 3DS version,
Well, except no, it did have co-op
Did
because
it?
it didn't have the jumpy thing. Because the thing I was looking at specifically mentioned that you would fall down things on the 3DS version, so it must have had co-op.
Yeah.
I guess it was like online or
okay,
link or
because
something.
like a lot
Yeah.
of 3DS games didn't really do co-op in the same way.
I mean, I could just look it up. Actually, somebody in chat will just look it up. It'll take about 10 seconds for them. We'll see it from them in a minute.
Yeah, whatever.
But anyway, yes. And I wrote this story and reframed it as, what a wonderful idea that they've done this.
Mhm.
Because
Now-
now they've made it like the original Mario Brothers.
Now it's like a competitive thing,
Yeah.
which again could be interesting. Not this game.
The moment I thought about that too, because Heather dreamt this up, that she's like, it's a good thing though, right? Because now you're having a competition, and I was like, oh my god, that's the hook. That's been the hook to this all
So don't
along.
you love it when they make your co-op games competitive?
Yeah.
And I was just like, click. I was like, oh my god, yes, because they did do that. Because then it got me into the original Mario Brothers, and I'm like, that's a long time ago. But I'm like, the original Mario Brothers was a co-op game, clear the sewers. But you could hit the POW and you could bump your buddy and you could do all that kind of shit. And my brother and I used to play this game, and he used to do that crap to me all the time because he's like, "Oh yeah, it'll be funny. I'll do this and he'll get hit," and for no reason, because it
Yeah.
makes the game harder because you don't have a friend helping you now.
Remember when me and my brother played the co-op version of the co-op stuff on Portal, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
But once we figured out that you could zap each other with the lasers, we didn't make that much progress for a while. Go, oops! Oh, sorry! Oh,
Yeah.
oh!
Yeah, I
oh,
think that's
oh,
one of the
whoops,
first
whoops.
things we typically do in a bunch of the co-op games. It's like
You're like-
you realize you can make co-op competitive, and then you just get kind of stuck.
Yeah, I believe.
We did that on.
I was going to say.
something.
Also, was it Trine?
Oh,
There was a
Oh,
fair amount. I
Jesus.
seem to recall
Yeah.
there was a fair amount of that going on.
okay. For trying though, you can just do it without managing to do that on purpose. There's
Oh,
so-
of course
so
you don't
much
do
of-
it. You don't do it on purpose.
So
It just happens by accident sometimes.
DKCR 3DS or 3D or whatever they called it had local wireless multiplayer. Both players need a cartridge.
Well,
See,
There it
again, they did multiplayer weird on the 3DS.
Yep.
The DS had a bunch of games where you could do a download
that was
code
cool.
from
Yeah.
people, so they didn't have to have the game.
Man,
And maybe it meant you could only play Mario Kart as like a shy guy or something, but you didn't have to always have the game, which meant your friend only had to have a DS, and a lot of people had them.
that was a great idea.
It was.
I mean, I guess somebody was like, "Why don't we do that again?" And then they're probably like, "So what you're saying is we make it so people buy less copies of the game?"
Yes.
Right.
Right.
And then that guy gets thrown out the window.
Well, that also to me kind of illustrates that it's like the point of the way we made this game to begin with was we want it to be a single player experience, and we added in multiplayer because we thought it'd be fun for you to do. But it is one of those things where it's like Tetris multiplayer, right? That like Tetris multiplayer works great. Playing somebody head to head is a lot of fun, but you all need a copy of the cartridge on the original Game Boy. And so for them, it's like it's an extra feature. It's something that we can add. It's a fun thing to have. But y'all need your own Game Boys and your own Tetris cards in order to do it. And that means that isn't the sole way to play this game. The way to play Tetris is you against the computer, like you speeding up and going faster and faster. And so while I love that idea of let me download the chunk of the game that I need to play with you so we can play multiplayer and don't have to buy a second copy of the cartridge, it does seem to me like no, we want you to have to if you're going to play multiplayer with people, it's because you both love the single player side of this thing, I guess. I'm like, I get that that's always the motivation in these cases. It's not great for when you just want to casually try it out with somebody.
Well, yeah, and that's the it's not the now you don't need multiple copies of the game, so your friend had to buy it, and they're going to make more money. It's now you don't have to rely on your friend having a copy of that game. They can try it out with you. It's limited because if they had a full copy of Mario Kart, they get to choose whatever characters they want, and then they get stuff for their own save file.
Yeah.
So it's a better experience if you have that.
Yeah.
But they got to try it out, and if you're hanging out a lot, they might go get their own copy.
Yeah.
When we're playing games on crossing the streams, and the game has like a friend, like some games, it's not that common, but when games do have it, where they have like, there's like 2 versions of it. There's like a free version that people can download and join, and but can only join a game.
Right.
Those are great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's very nice to see.
Yeah, the plushy elephant murder simulator game we played allowed us to have that.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
The best game for children.
Yeah.
For families.
Yeah.
It takes 2, by the way.
It takes 2 to murder a plush elephant.
They decided not to use Heather's quote for the box.
They should.
Finally, there's a new ninja in Mortal Kombat. Man, I love the way Mortal Kombat. This is not a new thing.
Yeah.
I love the way Mortal Kombat has embraces the like sort of fan speculation stuff. This from all the way back in the original Mortal Kombat, where there was like Reptile and there was speculation about other things. And then sometimes they run it. There's like will be glitched fighters. Like there'll be a bug that creates a glitched fighter, and then in the next game that guy will be real.
Yeah.
Or different things. My
Noob
favorite
Saibot.
Yeah, so Noob Saibot was one, which is the names of the 2.
Tobias and Boone. Yeah.
Right. Ermac, right? Which was he was just like an error code in the debug thing.
Cool.
And people were like, "Who's That it was like the list of fighters, and then it said Ermac at the bottom,
right?
And that was just like an error code. That wasn't actually like a name. And they're like, "Who's Ermac?" And then there's all this speculation, and then they're like, "Fine, we'll make a guy called Ermac."
Because they did that with Rain, who was a purple ninja.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, "Oh, that'll be really cool to have whatever." They've been teasing this way. It's like the joke was Purple Rain. It was a joke character on purpose.
What I'm hearing is they get bullied a lot by their audience.
Yeah. You float a lot of jokes, then you're like, I guess we'll go. Well, the thing is that when you have fans of the work that you're doing, and they talk an awful lot about, they make a whole kind of universe about the things that you're doing, eventually you start using that as feedback, and then they give you feedback about what you gave them as feedback. And
that
the next
seems
thing
like
you
a
know,
weird thing to do.
Yeah, I don't know why anyone would do that.
Yeah, it's super weird that would even exist.
So anyway, there's a new ninja. He's called Pink Floyd.
Yep. Well, he's called Floyd, and he is pink.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, so he's not part of the band?
No.
And
that's too bad. I think he'd make a great addition.
In keeping with previous Mortal Kombat things, in order to get him to appear, in order to fight him, you have to do a bunch of challenges. Now, there are 37 challenges, and these are things like, beat a guy using only sweep kicks, or do the things. And every time you do one, there's like a little like there's a little like sound effect.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't seem like you actually need to complete all 37 challenges in order to get him to appear.
Yeah.
But which of the 37 challenges you need to do appears to be different for different people.
Yeah.
So who knows?
And it's not like you just get to do one, you get to do several. And it also sounds like there's certain points while you're playing the game that Floyd's icon will show up and you'll get like a hint somehow of here's how you're doing on a certain challenge.
Which, a little like the, Dusty.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever.
And
a little. So it's a great, like, I feel like it's a very sort of nostalgic thing that they put in there to have this thing. Now, in some ways, a little bit disappointing is that in this modern age that we're in now, people do just like disassemble and go into the source code of games.
yes.
Where you couldn't really do that on like the arcade version of Mortal Kombat. I mean, they can now.
Yeah.
They go back into the original Mortal Kombat, but back in the day, it would just be like you have to get whatever Nintendo Power magazine might have
GamePro will have a thing
or
on
something,
yeah.
or there'd be hints about it or whatever. People would slowly figure it out. Now
Schoolyard
people
rumors.
can like go deep into the code and figure things out. But by making all these different challenges and stuff, they made it so it's still a little bit fun.
Mm-hmm.
And so Pink Floyd, apparently he has capability. He's not like, I think he sort of has capabilities of a bunch of the different ninjas. Like he doesn't have a bunch of his own abilities.
Oh, I see.
Which again is very in keeping with usually how they do. Like Smoke was basically Scorpion, but a palette swap. And had some few other things. Like they often do this.
Right.
So he has his abilities are sort of a combination of a bunch of the ninja abilities because it's a gag thing. They don't want to spend a ton of work on it.
And when you meet him and fight him,
He has, and we showed it in the outro. He has the best. Like when it happened, like the screen breaks, and then you get like this rainbow of all the different color ninjas,
right,
ending in Floyd.
The when you find him and you beat him, I think you have to beat him. Maybe just when you find him, so you can actually fight him. You get his stage, which is just a big field. It's just a big grassy field that you're fighting in. It has nice lighting effects and whatnot, like with the sun and everything. And it's just a very different kind of stage for Mortal Kombat traditionally, which has always been like in like crumbling ruins and like caves and like streets of cities or whatever. It's like, no, this is just a nice field to fight in. So that's you don't get to fight as him. You don't get him added to your roster.
Yeah, that was
which is fine.
And again, in keeping with standard Mortal Kombat practice, he'll show up. Not only will he like show up in the next Mortal Kombat,
1, 2.
Sure,
Yeah.
whatever. But he will have like a weirdly in-depth backstory that like weaves into everybody else's back. It turns out that he was actually there like the whole time.
They'll actually make it that it turns out I was actually Noob Saibot in a pink outfit or something ridiculous.
Look,
Why?
I don't wear black all the time.
He's a ninja.
Yeah.
They're sneaky.
Yeah,
He could have
exactly.
been everywhere.
Yeah.
He's been around
If you're
since the
looking
beginning
for a
of time.
ninja all dressed in black, you won't expect the ninja all dressed in pink.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
you
the
won't
tricky
even
move.
be able to focus on him because your brain will be like, that's not it.
Yeah, Gap Filler, I was also thinking of Dan Hibiki this whole time.
All right, let's move on to a couple stories that didn't make it in to the episode. Starting with, and Graham commented on this being like, wow, I did not have this on my bingo card. Yeah. So Beyond Two Souls, which is a game by the Quantic Dream, aka David Cage.
Yes.
Okay.
Now,
What did he do now?
Graham and I played this on GPLP on stream, and it's not good.
Okay. I mean, that's believable.
And it has this, as standard with the David Cage game, it's got this weird like branching storyline thing. And so stuff can or cannot happen depending on what you decide to do, and when those decision times happen is not very clear.
Oh.
Like
Okay.
there was a whole thing. There was like apparently a whole chunk of the game we missed because we didn't cross the road at a certain point.
Well, I mean, okay.
There's a thing where you sneak out. You're supposed to sneak out. Like you try to sneak out of. You're like in this military base, and at one point you're trying to sneak out of the military base to go into town, just to blow off some steam. And you get stopped, and Graham and I knew from some rumors that had happened that you go into town and go to a bar and like some bad stuff goes down, possibly sexual assault that goes down.
Awesome.
Because
Yeah.
David Cage is not above having that kind of stuff happen.
Yeah.
And so we were like a little bit leery of this, like we were playing the stream. We do this. We're playing thing where she's sneaking out, and you get stopped at like the exit.
Okay.
And you have to like figure out how to get past the guards, and we failed that, and then and we get sent back to our room, and we're like, oh, we just don't do that part of the game at all.
All right.
You know what? We're fine with that.
Yeah.
But also, isn't that like a really important part of the story? Okay, cool.
I mean, a game that has branching storylines makes having an important part of the story kind of hard to gauge.
Yeah. So the other big controversy that happened a couple months after it came out was that there are some, like I said, there's some possible. I don't think it's actually explicit, but there's sort of implied sexual assault stuff. There's also implied nudity. in
Right.
it. There's like a couple. I think there's at least one like shower scene
Right.
and things.
Where
You
the
don't-
camera is very tasteful.
but you don't see anything.
Yeah.
The main character, who is played by Elliot Page, did not only motion capture for the thing, but like sort of
The body scan.
David Cage has really been to like the full body scan, full facial
Yeah.
capture stuff, and did the entire thing, but with the idea that there wasn't any nudity.
Yes. But when you have a 3D model in a scene and you've done a full body scan of somebody and you were like modeling everything up to work, then they'd be like, well, there'll definitely be like a Barbie doll style model of a character that would be existing in a scene like that, because you're clearly like, well, we want to be sure that however the camera's moving and the model is moving, that you don't have like a weird glitch that causes like a weird black whatever to come into scene or something like that. You want it to be. It's like, no,
And
that's
so-
not what happened. They did a much more detailed model of Elliot Page.
From what I understand, that it wasn't a real scan. Like
Yeah.
they didn't act
They didn't take
Yeah,
a
I
nude scan
thought
of
they
her.
used-
scan, and so they like put his head on the like a naked body.
Yeah.
And so it's not visible in the game, but when people got the code of the game, there is a fully nude model in there.
Yeah.
And quite reasonably, I think, Elliot Page was not happy about that, and there was a big kerfuffle. I don't know how it actually ended.
Yeah. Was it a court case or something? But there was some.
There was a big.
There
There
was.
was. There was a big. I think there was a court case, or
Yeah.
at least something happened,
But that was a while ago.
and that was a while ago.
What's today's?
So, fast forward to now, where the headline is Elliot Page is working on a Beyond Two Souls TV show. And I was like, wait, what?
And it's his production company.
Yes, Page Boy Productions
Yeah.
has acquired the rights to adapt Beyond Two Souls into a television series. And now they haven't, we don't know. It's Elliot Page's production company, so we don't know. It's not necessarily that they'll be playing the lead character as they had originally. 'Cause,
Right.
But,
The transition is going to make it a little hard to be.
and like Willem Dafoe was also in the original.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, it's it's kind of wild, and Yeah, filming the game was one of the most challenging and fulfilling acting experiences of my career, Page said. The story's rich narrative and emotional depth offer us a fantastic foundation, and we want to create unique vision of the characters and journeys that resonate with fans and newcomers. To be honest, I could see like taking away the need to have it be this sort of branching narrative, like as with a lot of David Cage Quantic Dream games, it's like, why is this a video game? Right? You clearly wanted to make a movie. Just let it be a movie or a TV show.
Yes.
Maybe, and it doesn't sound like Quantic Dream is the ones who are like writing it or making this. This is being made by
Page Boy bought the rights. Yeah.
The idea that I feel like the story of Beyond Two Souls could be made into an interesting TV show with the basic framework of it, without being sort of weighed down by the interactiveness and the branching storyline-ness. I think it probably could be a much more well-done thing. So, I don't know. I'd be interested to see what it would actually turn out to be like.
The question I have, because I'm never quite clear, because Quantic Dream, removing everything we know about Quantic Dream and
done.
Like all the like working condition bullshit and all the because it's a French company, right? And I remember there being a lot.
So.
There was a lot of stuff about how it's like, oh, they're potentially breaking a lot of laws regarding French employment or whatever.
They've had some controversies about their working conditions.
And removing everything we know about David Cage, auteureness or whatever you want to say, in that respect, it's just like one thing I want to know is, are any of their games any good or not?
It depends.
I actually really liked Detroit Become Human.
Okay.
I actually thought the layout they did with the branching storylines and how you picked stuff was really interesting.
Yeah, it's like I don't need it to like.
I mean, there was stuff about it that was real bad, but I actually thought it was pretty good.
Like LA Noire was the game that kind of got them on the map.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't realize that was one of theirs.
I believe it was.
Because I know it was published by EA, was it not?
I think so.
Yeah. It's just the idea of like, because to me, it's everyone keeps talking about,
Oh, Quantic did not do LA.
Okay.
Sorry, why
Okay.
did I think they? No.
Because it's like
Heavy Rain?
Heavy Rain, right? That's the game.
Heavy Rain was the one that was their breakout game, I guess. The one that made everybody like sit up and be like, "Oh, look at this! Like this is a game style we haven't seen before." And it's just this
team bonding. Okay.
It's just this thing of
Why did I
like
think-
I don't get. People talk so much shit about Quantic Dream, and yet then it's like, oh, but don't worry, they'll still keep making games, and they'll still keep getting like licensing things. And Elliot Page wants to make a TV show based on the game, and so that's a revenue stream, and like all these kind of things. And I'm like, I don't know what any of it's like with Peter Molyneux, right? The same kind of idea of like everyone keeps giving this guy multiple chances to impress somebody, and nobody ever ends up being that impressed ultimately.
And I mean, I think there's a certain aspect of, especially like Heavy Rain, like they're making games in a way that nobody else is.
Sure.
And so like Heavy Rain is like a game that, it was a pretty unique story. It was this, the idea of doing this sort of really serious, not sort of action packed, but sort of really visceral story of this, the sort of serial killer and all this stuff. And it was quite interesting as a thing. But then, it's that case where sort of, as time goes on and more games come out and stuff, you start sort of seeing aspects where it's like, maybe
treading the same ground over and over, but the polish isn't getting any more polished.
And when it's not sort of a brand new idea or a sort of a unique thing that nobody has thought of before or a way of presenting a game, then it starts becoming like, okay, so now, because it's like now you're not competing against, Mario. Now you're competing against like basically a TV show.
Yeah.
And it's like, in that context, the story is maybe not that good.
Okay.
But lots of
So-
people like him.
I mean, the simple fact is we make fun of these people because they're easy to make fun of, and
Yes.
they talk too much to the public when they probably should.
It's true. And yeah, David Cage himself has definitely not done himself
Peter
any favors.
Molyneux specifically talks too much out loud.
Right.
So anyway, yeah, some of the Quantic Dream has definitely done some really interesting things, but it has has some story stuff starts coming up over and over again that because like maybe they don't maybe they're not as smart as they think they are, sort of thing.
I mean, sometimes it's the thing is that when you creative people can get way too far past their skis sometimes.
You can also just, like, it starts looking different from a different lens. Like, it's one thing to play, if you don't interact with the game news at all and you just play Detroit Become Human.
Right.
You might be like, okay, there's some stuff they've taken from other things. There's some stuff that's not new here, but there's some stuff that's interesting and whatever, even if you've played other games. And then if you take it from the lens of you've heard this person talk out loud about how they clearly don't understand certain history aspects that are in the game.
Right. Yeah.
It kind of starts to recolor the way the piece of media you looked at is, right?
Right.
In the same way that you could read a book and then find out a thing about the author.
Yeah.
Anyway, in other news, there was the big thing about Sony having the PlayStation accounts required for PC games. What was that game? The Super Earth game.
Helldivers.
Helldivers.
Oh, good.
Helldivers 2.
I don't know.
Helldivers 2 got in trouble about it and a bunch of stuff. Sony has now, Sony has been putting more of their stuff on Steam, but
People got really upset when Helldivers 2 all of a sudden needed a PlayStation Network account in order to play, because people were like, wait, we just used to be able to play any Sony exclusive that's also on PC by just downloading and playing the game. Like, what are you doing to us now?
And it was especially when it's like single player games.
Well,
Yeah.
and I mean, that game also allowed you to start, and then they added this thing in. So that's a huge breaking point. But
now
that's not what this is about. This is something slightly different.
Yeah, so because this is because they were also doing it for single player games, which really rubs people the wrong way. Spider-Man 2, God of War: Ragnarok, Last of Us 2, Horizon Zero Dawn, all are sort of primarily single player games or entirely single player games that required PlayStation login. Or a PlayStation account in order to actually play the game. And nobody likes signing up for extra accounts. I don't know. Maybe somebody really does like signing up for extra accounts.
Yeah,
but
that's why everyone loves Origin and whatever the EA one is and Ubisoft's separate account thing.
Yeah.
Everyone loves having an account with every game company out there.
Love doing that.
And as folks in the chat mentioned, the other thing is that PSN accounts aren't necessarily available in all regions either. So you can get into weird situations where the game is available, but the PSN account isn't. Anyway, so they have made the PSN account for those 4 games. So this is not a universal thing.
But just those 4.
But at least those 4 games, they have made the account optional. Why would you want one if you don't need one?
Right.
You may ask. you need one in order to get your trophies.
Okay.
PlayStation trophies, still very important.
But if you don't
Have a PlayStation.
do PlayStation stuff and you're doing this on Steam, you already got your trophies, don't you?
Trophies are important.
Yeah, but do you need double trophies, Paul?
That's more trophies.
I mean,
of course you do.
Think of
don't
it this
know
way:
about
it's
that.
like
You do get Steam achievements either
yeah,
way.
if it means that you're earning both achievements and trophies at the same time, which is
If someone was like, you can have one trophy or you can have 2 trophies. Wouldn't you rather have 2 trophies?
yeah.
See, well, no.
All you
not
have to do
really.
is sew this patch into your outfit, and
Okay, but patches are different. Those are
Yeah.
cool.
yeah, patches are cool. So you're saying that Nintendo shouldn't do trophies or achievement, but they should do patches.
Nintendo should sell me patches for the cool things I've achieved in games so I can put them on my backpack.
Every year that you should be able to go and buy your cool patches to
Yes.
put them on your. Yes,
Just-
actually, I
just
agree
like
with
Girl
this.
Scouts.
That's such a good idea. Because people would totally be like, I now get to flaunt this in public
Yep.
on my gear. Oh my god, that's such a good idea.
I like how we were talking about it. It's like, why would you possibly need trophies?
Holy
oh my
shit.
God, this is a great thing that we need trophies for.
If I could come up with a way to do achievement patches for our fans, I would totally do that. If I could think of what the right thing to do would be, I would make packs of patches for people to be
Well,
able to buy
you
those.
know what that means? Make yourself a task.
Yeah, to think about that. Oh my god.
Logging onto PlayStation, your PlayStation Plus account or your PSN account also allows you to do friend management, which is, I know what that means, but that's a great term.
Friend management.
Yeah, I do that once a week.
Yeah. And you can also, there's like some like in-game rewards. This feels very Ubisoft. Like you play stuff. There's a ton of I don't think they don't really push it as much anymore. But back in the day, there was a lot of like, if you signed in with your Ubisoft account, there was like Uplay rewards, and there would be like special things that you get. So like you get early unlocks for like a new outfits and different kinds of stuff.
Alrighty.
So this article is talking about how this is a big change in sort of thing, but it's not necessarily a universal change. It's still only in the 4 things, and they haven't signaled whether that's something that they are planning on doing going forward. I don't know why these particular 4 games. Maybe they're just the ones that people were complaining the most
They
about.
are 4 very well-known games that they probably like to make some additional sales on.
Yeah. And that people are,
And that people notice.
the people notice. I don't know if people are like actually not buying the game because of that requirement, but at least it's one of the
if
things.
if you're in a region that requires that
That's
you
true.
have a thing that you can't get, then yes, they definitely know that those people have that as a problem.
Those would be interesting analytics actually to see if the sale of a game just then all of a sudden takes off, and you're like, why? And you're like, well, actually that entire line goes up is because in frickin' I don't know where.
Well, that's the thing.
Wherever
I think,
it's not.
I think because of Helldivers 2, they actually have some of those analytics.
Yeah, and they can just be like, we know that this number's going to go up because in Egypt you can't do PSN, so now all of a sudden everybody can buy this thing, and I'm picking that out of the air. But it's like all of a sudden, it's all these Egyptian gamers have shown up to play this game because now they can finally play it, which would be very telling because if you see your game like sales increase by 10,000 or 50,000 or whatever, because now you've changed this, that's very telling to the company. It's like, see how this is a problem when you do this? Like, you need to stop doing this. You need to make it optional everywhere.
Yeah. So it's not great in the sense of nobody knows if this is a change that's like permanent, but I'd
Yeah.
say it's a good step
Yeah.
towards something. Hopefully it pans out.
I really wanted to do a story about this, and I couldn't find my line. Not what we just talked about, about the next story.
So, for a long time, GOG has had something they call the wish list, user, community wish list, which is just games that the community wants them to have available on GOG. So obviously, GOG, Good Old Games service, their big thing is bringing in older games and making sure that they're available and functional on the new hardware. And so they've recently gone through and updated this system to what they call the Dream List, where basically what they want to do is they have this page where people can vote on games, and I'm assuming they have a a database of games that they are available in some way, or that are not available in other ways.
Yeah, that it's like we have this list and it's based on games that we know were available on PC or Mac or maybe even earlier systems, but that are not locked into, like, you're not going to see somebody be like, I want to play Donkey Kong on PC. It's like, that's not going to come up.
And what they want to do is basically have people, they want to make it as easy as possible for people to vote on these games.
Yep.
And then they actually have the expertise, because a lot of problem with these games is that they are effectively sort of abandonware.
Mm-hmm.
Been different
Unlikely to get
different
removed.
definitions of that. They're either nobody knows who owns them. In some cases, that like the original, it's gone through so many different things that the rights are not known. Nobody knows where the source code is, or the rights for it are tangled up somehow. People in the comments talked about Known Those Forever, which is an awesome game. But the rights for, the old like GoldenEye,
Yeah.
was famously, the rights were owned by like Nintendo and Rare and the company that owns.
Okay, but
And
some
so-
of the picks on this list don't seem that way to me.
Yeah. So, but there's all sorts of different reasons why something might be not available. But whatever the case, they want people to be able to vote on it, and then they can basically use this as ammunition when they go to developers and they go, hey, we want to take your game and we want to take your game, update it, and sell it. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah. If you want to help, I guess you could.
Yeah.
But you don't have to.
Just say yes, and you will get money.
Yeah.
There's 50,000 people signing this thing that say they want to buy your game.
Yeah.
Just allow us to take it and update it so it runs on current computers, and we will sell it and give you a cut.
Yeah.
Please let us give you money. And so this is sort of, and they in this article they talked about, they just recently are coming out with Dino Crisis 1 and 2. Just came on GOG.
Those are Capcom games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not that nobody knew that they were available. Nobody knew who owned them.
Yeah.
People know the Capcom, but Capcom didn't have any way for people to get those games. And GOG, at least according to their blog, they say when talks with IP owners hit a wall, the wish list keeps the conversation going.
Mm-hmm.
And they can say, hey, look, all these thousands of people want this game. Let's keep talking about this. How can we work this out?
And it's not even that what they're doing is they're saying, we're going to create either patches, like we'll have to create a whole configuration thing for DOSBox, let's pretend, or we'll have to create means for it to run on certain versions of Windows or whatever. And then we will make all those configuration changes available to the community, so anybody with an old copy can use their old copy to play on the version of DOSBox or whatever. It's like, no, we're literally bundling this all together, and people will buy this to push this out the door, because GOG's got to make money too, right? You know, if there's 10,000 people who want to play Betrayal at Krondor again, but it's because they all have copies of their old game on CD, it wouldn't be very helpful to be able to sell copies of Betrayal at Krondor and also release all the configuration to the community. So this is very money motivated, definitely, and they have every right to be money motivated. It's
right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the sort of explicitly
Yeah.
Apparently, Black and White. Speaking of Peter Molyneux,
Yep.
Pokemon.
Black and White, which was like a
God game.
Oh, that one.
Peter Molyneux God game where you like had a little pet that you
Right.
went around and did stuff. Is high on the list. Is currently at the top of the list, in fact, with like 69,000 votes.
It had 53, I think.
No, here we go.
Other-
69 or 69 96 9.
Yeah.
Maybe that
Is for the meme?
it's possible that is not an entirely organic.
Well, I do
number.
think it might be hard for them to get more votes than that.
Yeah.
Now that they're at that number.
And then-
Although people in the chat have pointed out that there may not be, like, for instance, Diablo 2 is on here.
Well, yeah, but
Grim
like
Fan-
Final Fantasy VII.
And so some of these games, there may not be any much in the way of curation in terms of whether these games are like available some other way or whatever.
Like,
Maybe I was wrong about that.
Grim Fandango literally has a view on GOG thing next to it that doesn't even have.
So that was released. Yeah,
so they
that
did
was
put
successful.
that out.
Yeah.
So it's worked in more than just the one case right now. Like they've already released 334 games. Oh my god,
That's what they say. Anyway,
this is
yeah.
working. All right. And yeah, like my view on it that I was trying to come up with was like, for the story I was going to try to tell was to be the thing is like, I don't get why everybody wants to bring back all these old games. I mean, like, there's 40,000 new games on Steam every year. There's so many choices for what you could play these days. You've already played all these old games. There's no point in playing all the new ones. You know, I think that everyone just needs to calm down and concentrate on, like, you know, like, and just think about like support people who are making games now, because they're the people who are actually making games now and not all these old games from a long time ago. Meanwhile, I'm super excited that Nintendo just put out fucking whatever it was, the on the Super Nintendo Virtual Console thing. I'm going to be playing that all night tonight. Awesome. Thanks. Goodbye. Like, that was going to be my story.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's
I told Beach it was too
super,
mean.
it's very thin and a little mean. So it's like, okay, fair.
I mean, we have established that you don't think there's any difference between the original Sims and Sims 4. So why don't people just play the new versions of all of these games? Why bother?
Why bother?
Anyway. So, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. GOG isn't, it's not pretend that GOG is some sort of altruistic company doing this, but they're doing something that can definitely be seen as a positive. So we need to, it's nice to be able to
And maybe they'll get a game out that you want to play. You know,
agree with
like
that.
Sims 4, because it's the same as Sims 3.
Even if what they end up doing, like by backing this thing, what it leads to is the unsnarling of all the rights issues that have become through things being passed around and around every year.
Or at least an attempt to do that.
Yeah, to be like, okay, here's what we've discovered, that the rights belong to so-and-so, and then they went to, like, to even just create a database of, like, here's how the rights have changed for this game over the years, and here's where it's split, and here's where pieces of it got sold to different parties, and, you know, here's who we know owns this stuff, and it's like that somebody out there might actually have a record of, now we know where all this stuff has gone to. That, I think, would be super cool in itself, to just be like, we'll never get No One Lives Forever. Why? 8 different companies now have different pieces of the rights. They own the character. They own the game files. They own the artwork. They own the music. You know, like, that would be interesting to know, to see how torn apart it becomes.
Isn't the story? This is not specifically video game related, but we've talked about the Pokemon card game before on ChillPoint, just because it is a video game franchise. And it is also extremely popular. And some of the stuff we've talked about before is that some of the cards have gone for very large amounts of money. Especially the old fancy cards or old extremely unfancy cards. I mean, just like Magic, there are like sample test cards,
Right?
And like those are the, like if you can get, in Magic, there's like the alpha cards that are the most expensive ones. But then the step above that are the like Richard Garfield playtest cards that are like photocopied.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
If you
yeah,
can
yeah.
get those,
Oh, yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
shot.
Older and worse the card, the more
Yeah.
what?
But anyway, I found this story interesting because so the some of these really really old Pokemon, very high cost beta playtest Pokemon cards apparently have been revealed to be fakes, phonies.
With Dittos?
Yeah, they're all
Dittos.
actually Dittos.
There's cards you can get with a Ditto where if you pull it back, you find it.
Oh,
or
is
like
there?
it's
It's
it's a
overlay?
fake card and it's like a sticker you pull back and it's a Ditto underneath.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's super funny.
Even ones that have been like, graded officially,
Yeah.
which is concerning for people.
Mm-hmm.
And especially since the way that they found this out is, it seems like a really obvious thing to check. It's got, so modern printers have a embedded dot pattern code in them that not only indicates that it's a modern printer, but also actually has like the date that it was printed on. Ostensible, a lot of this is for like anti-counterfeiting stuff and just general things. It's not visible in normally, but you can see it with certain things. And so they were able to find. Now, my experiences with Magic cards, of course, and I know, like, I've seen some of the stuff about like counterfeit Magic cards, because counterfeit Magic cards is like a huge deal, and the precision of how much the sort of community knows about how those early Magic cards were printed. It's like, no, this is clearly a fake because this is, if you zoom in the little rosettes of the printer, like it's the wrong kind of a printer that's being used for this. Or this was like, you can see that the black was not overprinted, was printed at the same time as the color, whereas the original ones, the black was overprinted onto the thing.
Right. Yeah.
Or this particular card was slightly out of the original one was slightly out of
registration.
so you can tell that it's not the real one.
That's how offset printing works. If you're not aware, is that offset printing is done where you're getting printed when you're running stuff in an offset printer, that everything's in registration. Like they all have to be exactly, so that when you lay a color over top of each other, that they all that's what makes your combination of colors, and that means it's an additive process. You're putting a color on top of a color on top of a color. Whereas if you're printing on like a laser jet or whatever, it's depending on the kind of system you're printing on, it's not going to be quite the same thing.
So anyway, so I was slightly surprised that like these kind of things were still out there for Pokemon cards, but I think the price of Pokemon cards has gone up a lot lately, so the interest in forgeries has probably gone up a lot too. So yeah, this card that was supposed to be made, that theoretically should have been made in 1996, literally has the thing that it's like the code on it says it was 2024.
Right.
Like,
Great.
not good. You want an FPGA PlayStation?
Sure, why not?
One that looks very much like a PlayStation or a PS1.
I mean, where do I put the CDs?
Yeah, I kind of liked the pop-out CD thing. This
This
looks like a stone tablet.
So the cool thing, so this is a FPGA version of a
It's a retro
PlayStation,
console.
yeah.
Yeah. And it uses like the Mister setup, right? Is that like what everyone else has been using these days? Is the Mister FPGA cores and like all that kind of work that's been going on there? This console uses that.
Probably. I didn't
believe
see.
that's what
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw that earlier in the story when I went over this at one point. But yeah.
Now it doesn't. It does have. Wait, let me show you. It doesn't have a built-in CD drive. They are selling a separate like CD drive with like a tray that pops out.
Like the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
No. No.
It does have original controller, like it's got adapters for original controller ports and memory cards and stuff,
That's
plus USB stuff. And it's got like USB-C audio and, HDMI out and all the sort of modern conveniences.
I like that they're not requiring you to buy the CD dock part, though. That if you don't want that, if you have no PlayStation games on disc to play, you can just buy the retro console on its own, and then maybe use your own backups.
So yeah. Anyway, if you want an FPGA PlayStation, you can get that now.
Mm-hmm.
You should probably maybe get one. I don't know if if they have a chance of being shut down. The fact that it looks a lot like the PlayStation 1 probably gives them a little more danger in terms of getting shut down, but it's probably not that big a concern.
You might want to draw a circle on the top to make it look like it has a thing that pops out.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't think it looks right without
The
the drive part.
the drive
Like
door.
I'd be totally fine if they're like, no, it's not there, but aesthetically it looks like it's there. I don't know. It's weird to me.
I think it would be interesting if obviously they made that and hopefully it reads black PlayStation CDs, like the CD drive technologies are like, yes, we could totally read those. It's not a problem. But it would been kind of neat if they were like, it's actually a DVD drive, so you can read DVD movies on it as well, or you could read PlayStation 2 discs if you wanted to do that too. But I'm sure that'll be the next one. The Superstation 2 will be the one that it looks like a
I mean, you
PS2
just get a PS2 retro something, right? Because I think the PS2 played the PS1 discs as well.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah.
And the marketing here, it also supports other Mr. FPGA cores if you want
So you can play your Sega Saturn on this. All right. Well, I mean, that's what we did with Desert Bus now, right? We've moved to a Mr. Pi, I think, to play the Desert Bus, because it's just the Sega CDs that we have and the
are getting very unreliable.
Yeah, and even the JVC XIs that we have, it's like that's good equipment, but
that's what happens
wearing
to a
out.
bus after a number of years.
Yeah,
It gets unreliable.
it's unreliable.
I can't believe you would
true.
take the reality of that away from the viewers.
You run one,
Sometimes they just crash.
if you run the Sega CD for a certain number of hours, but you don't drive it, you can't air cool it, and so it just breaks down.
If you are a fan of Marvel Rivals,
Or Marvels for short.
Marvel Rivals,
Morals.
then there's a good chance you don't like Moon Knight. Apparently, he is a very unpopular character, not to play, but to play against.
Wait, isn't that the character that was also like overpowered in Marvel Snap?
I don't
Moon
remember.
Knight? I heard something about that too, yeah.
I thought he was. Are they just making him overpowered in everything?
So apparently the issue is not so much, in this case, the issue is not so much that Moon Knight is overpowered, is that Moon Knight is overpowered accidentally. He is bugged overpowered.
His ult is the thing that is the biggest problem, right?
Yeah,
He doesn't look like a blue beetle.
And apparently that's the thing that people. So there's a couple parts of his ult that are not apparently working the way they're supposed to. So his ult is he calls down multiple ghostly claws that deal 75 damage. So he calls down a bunch of things that go boom, 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 boom. They do 75 damage in a small radius. So the problem is that the radius that show like when he activates the ult, it shows like the area of effect.
Right.
Sure.
That isn't correct. So the the claws do damage outside that radius.
Yeah, okay.
So if you're
Standing near it.
standing near it, you can get hit without knowing why.
Right.
Secondly, apparently the claws do twice as much damage as they're supposed to do.
Have we considered that maybe what's this guy's name? Moon Knight.
Moon Knight, yeah.
Maybe he just lies.
That's true.
He
Maybe
tells you that you would be safe outside the circle, but it's not true. He tells you it'd be
No,
this much
He's
damage, but
technically
it's
more
not
than
true.
one person.
You're
so-
not allowed to lie in these things.
I see.
Even if you're fighting,
Surely one of the
good
people
guys
in
and
him
bad
must
guys.
be liars.
So the issue is that the claws. I think what it is. I was trying to work it out. I believe what it is that the claws.
They fall within their sphere of influence, but
So-
it's the splash.
Yeah, the claws land hit, and then I think it's basically they hit, but and do damage around them.
Yes.
But there's a chance, but there's a good chance that they can basically hit twice as they hit, and then the other part hits.
That's interesting.
Also, the other part that apparently really annoys people is if Moon Knight gets killed right as he's setting off his ult, the voice line for the ult doesn't play, which kind of makes sense.
He's dead.
Yeah.
But
say it.
apparently that's unusual in that Moon Knight's the only one that happens on.
That to
Which
me,
means that people don't know that the ult still happens, but people don't know that it was.
that sounds
in.
to me more like it's just bugged on all the other characters.
Not making. I mean,
And
but also the thing happening once the guy's dead also seems not correct.
Though if it has to travel all the way from the moon, I mean, then
It
he's
just takes some time.
it's already
yeah.
it's already on its way at that point. You can't really
Right.
stop it.
Also, I love this line in the Polygon article. Now, before you start blaming a bug on all your deaths, it's worth pointing out that the problem here isn't that it's lethal, but that it's misleadingly lethal.
If I'm gonna die, damn it, I want to know why.
Exactly. Misleadingly lethal is a great descriptor. And finally, so this is really interesting. We've talked lots of times back and forth about the sort of video game preservation stuff. And one of the sticking points has been this idea of, well, if we've got these games available, people are going to, play them.
How dare?
How
How
dare-
dare?
how dare
How
they.
dare you do a thing for what
We
the thing
only
is
want
made?
them to be accessible to, academics doing research. We don't want people to have fun with these games.
Right.
It's important that nobody actually has fun while they look
With a video game.
They have to be very serious study. But the Video Game History Foundation will be opening its digital archives to the public. Still work in progress, these archives will be one of the largest repositories dedicated to the study and preservation of video game history. Feature over 1,500 issues of the out-of-print magazine or out-of-print magazines, in addition to promotional material and other game development assets. So this is not the actual games themselves.
Yeah.
But it is a bunch of copyrighted material that they previously were not available.
Just to be safe, when you go access all this information, don't have any fun.
Yeah.
Because if they think you're having fun, they might take it away.
So this is largely going to be like a bunch of video game magazines and
Remember we talked about
manuals
you
and
can't
stuff.
you can't find how to get all the secrets without getting Nintendo Power magazine. Or
exactly. So maybe they're all in there. Like I don't actually know. Like
You
whether
go
they
back
have
in
access to
time
it or
and
not. But
experience the wonderful marketing of the 90s and video games and how amazing of a terrible time that actually was.
game development material though is interesting as an addition to this too, right? Because it's like if it's on par with the things that we saw out of the Giga Leak, where it's like, here's the original designs for a Mario level, or this is what Donkey Kong looked like originally, or this is how Nintendo made the game Popeye, and like lots of like notes from creators and stuff. If a lot of that style of thing, it just almost sounds a lot like people from other companies being like, we got all these boxes of old notes from Dan's office. What do we do? Well, send them to the VGHF and let them digitize it all. Like, it might be worth something to somebody someday, right?
I feel like that's not happening.
Probably not, but there's a lot of people who go to their garages, though. Like, when they leave a company, they will take all their crap with them and they'll put it in their garage for like 10 or 20 years and be like, oh shit, yeah, when I made this game, and I still have all my notes and my binders and shit from that. And then VGHF, I think, has come along and been like, can we have that?
Sure.
Because we'll digitize it all for you and we'll put it up, and then you don't have to worry about keeping the paper if you don't want to anymore.
I just don't expect it to be like a big company is like, oh, hey, we have all these notes here. We don't know what's in it.
Yeah.
Let a stranger do stuff with it and hope nobody finds out something we didn't want.
Yeah.
What's particularly interesting about this, though, is they talk about like, sure, they could just throw everything up on, internet archive.org or something.
Yeah.
But one of the things that they are really trying to focus on is having their archive sort of add value for research purposes. So, for instance, they have it all sort of cross-referenced. So, you can look for all the articles on specific games or different publishers or authors or, want to learn about the first mention of Metroidvania? Well, you can find it within the archive. Presumably, it was sometime after both Metroid and Castlevania came out.
I would assume
But
so.
what if it wasn't? What if Castlevania was the first Castle Metroidvania game, so they called it Castlevania?
Or what if it was
That's
like
probably not true.
a terrible typo where somebody was writing out the word Metroid, and then they did a find replace for the word castle, and they put Metroid in front of Vania, and it got a terrible typo in like a GamePro magazine. Everyone's like, oh, that's a great thing, we should call it that from now on. And the author was like, no, I started a terrible idea.
I mean, this is one of those, it's like that sort of small controversy that happened, I think it was a few months ago, where it was talking about JRPGs, and that, and some Japanese RPG developers objected to the term JRPGs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because they considered it to be something that was sort of a dismissive term, that they aren't real RPGs, they're JRPGs.
When we were first
Oh my
starting to
God.
get JRPGs within the West, there was a lot of media to support the idea that it was looked upon dismissively.
And and a bunch of people sort of saw that and they were like, "What? That doesn't."
Because the modern take on it is that no, a JRPG is a specific style and implementation of the RPG idea.
And also this idea that but those were always like Final Fantasies, and then people could go to these archives and be like, no, Final Fantasy, like all these, what games we now call JRPG, Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, these kind of games, weren't called JRPGs until Western companies were also trying to make RPGs and then needed a word to differentiate themselves from the.
Yeah, because I've heard ARGP referred to as a thing, and I'd heard that stood for American RPG. There's like an RPG created in the Western market, and I was like, I don't think that's correct.
I don't think that's right.
That's
I know
what I've heard.
I know there's a lot of letters before RPG now for certain firms, but what was?
Yeah.
I don't think. I think it might have been action.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know a lot of people said
ARPG
that.
was originally,
It's supposed to be action RPG.
was like Diablo and stuff. Was
Yeah.
sort of ARPGs.
Except that you have things like Ultima or, like the original Baldur's Gate they never referred to that's turn-based combat. Like ultimately that is a turn-based combat thing, and that was one of the hallmarks of a Japanese role-playing game. And you know what? I realized that we're getting down an incredible rabbit hole when we were talking about the VGHFs.
The point being that history is important for these kind of things.
Yeah.
And not only the history of the video games, but also the history of how games and how media reported on the games.
And it's clear, too, that from that, it illustrates that a piece of knowledge that I had gained for all these many years and kind of kept that in mind of this is what I understood was going on at that time might be incorrect.
Yeah.
And that having access to all the material is a way to be able to go back and be like, this is what was going on at the time. You can correct your understanding.
So anyway, I just thought that was cool.
I mean, there's so many genre tags for video games that don't necessarily tell you much about the video game these days.
All right, the Midnight Society is gone down. They're closing their doors.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought this was going to be the other thing.
No, so that Dr. Disrespects the place that he founded and then apparently left, and then got kicked out after his whole thing. Yeah, so
They're closing, too.
they're closing. They sold a lot of NFTs for the game that they never actually released. So good on them, I guess.
Yeah, excellent grift, gentlemen. Well executed. I want to put this idea into the universe since we were talking about it the other night.
Okay.
And I thought that there is an artist on Tumblr called Higgs Bison, I think is what their name is. I'm going to get this wrong.
Sounds
probably.
like a good name.
Okay.
It is. And they did a lot of art and were doing a kind of a choose your own adventure style thing where people would make suggestions through their Tumblr about what should happen next through like polling and whatnot, that they called Discworld Elysium.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so I want
I
to
was
put
just
that.
like, did I black out during
I want
this
to put this
conversation?
idea out to a much larger idea in the universe. That's like I know that there have been a few Discworld games in the past. In fact, I actually just saw brief footage of one last night while I was watching a video. I was like, oh shit, Discworld game showed up in this video I was watching. But this idea of like Disco Elysium, I can't stop really like it pops into my mind every so often because the memes are fantastic. And I'm like, I should just go play this game at some point. I will probably play this game at some point. But what I would like to play is a Discworld game. And I thought, actually, this Discworld Elysium thing seems like a really cool idea. And if any of those companies that are going to do Disco Elysium spiritual spin-offs, there's about a dozen of those companies now, if they want to try to do something, you might try to develop a pitch for that and go to Narrativium and talk to Rihanna Pratchett and see if she'd like to see that come into the universe.
Just because the name is similar?
No, because the idea is
Oh,
it's a watch game. It's about Vimes. But you know how Vimes tends to talk to himself about stuff when and he has like a darker aspect of himself, and that like comes into play. So this person came up with like 8 or 9 different aspects of Vimes. There's like there's Old Stoneface, and there's like there's Knerd, and there's like all these the Shadow, like all this different, and there's Qui Custodius de Custodiat. Because he's always doing that thing of like, the watchman inside me that has to watch myself to make sure that I don't step outside of being a watchman. And all those different aspects of here's how you would respond to conversations, and here's how you, it's really, really cool.
Be a cool idea, yeah.
Tumblr thing. And I'm like, actually, yeah, that would be a really neat idea. And I'm like, that would kill as an actual video game. And if anyone was a game studio out there being like, oh, we want to make another Disco Elysium spiritual sequel or whatever, this could be an idea for that type of game. So if that inspires anybody, go look at the Tumblr.
Also, the name is very similar.
Yes.
So you could...
Well,
You could definitely get
maybe,
some
depending on what
gas
you
out of
could
that.
get.
Yeah.
The thing, Beach has experienced the thing I often experience, which is I make up a different game that doesn't exist, or you find someone else who has, and then you hope that one day somebody else will actually make
You
it.
go like, oh,
Yeah.
oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do that all the time. I'm very sad a lot of the time because of it.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us on this particularly rambly episode of ChillPoint.
I don't know if it's been particularly rambly. He seems pretty on par to me.
It's
no
true.
pressure
It's
to
true.
finish on time.
And yet we're still
Yeah.
We're a little overtime.
we're a
than we
little
are,
over
yeah.
what we normally do, I guess.
Actually, hey, if you're still watching this, question for to put in the comments. We changed the lights back here a little bit.
Did you even notice?
had the idea that they previously colors are the same, but previously they did a sort of a slow fade between the different colors, and this is like they more just like change, but less often. So it's just like occasional little blunk, blunk, blunk. Do you like that better? Do you like that worse? Did you not notice and you don't care?
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to not care.
And it's okay-
These are important.
Specifically for the YouTubers, and I guess if you're still watching on Twitch, if we're second screen content and you don't notice any of the visuals, that's cool too.
Yeah, I'm curious. This is also for ChillPoint, by the way. Again, curious to see whether you noticed or care one way or another. But other than that, thank you everybody for watching. If you haven't seen the episode of ChillPoint that we talked about a while ago, it seems like hours ago now. You can check it out on youtube.com/LRRVG, our video game channel. You can also support us over on Patreon, of course, or by becoming a member of YouTube, or buying stuff in the store, or any of those great things. But let us call it there. Say thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.